Picture this. It's 1940. London is burning. Nazi bombers rain terror from the skies every single night. Thousands die in the Blitz. Air raid sirens wail, but they're almost useless because by the time people hear them, the bombs are already falling. But one man, a Jewish refugee who escaped the Nazis by mere months, is working in secret on a device that will change everything. A device so ingenious, so ahead of its time, that it would give Britain's defenders precious minutes of warning. Minutes that would save thousands of lives. This is the untold story of how a persecuted inventor turned the tide of aerial warfare, and why the Nazis never saw him coming. Before we dive into this incredible story, if you're fascinated by untold stories from World War II, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. We uncover the hidden heroes and secret technologies that changed history. Now let's begin. Berlin, 1938. Dr. Heinrich Loewe stands in his laboratory, hands trembling as he reads the newest racial laws posted on the university wall. As a Jewish physicist, his days in Germany are numbered. The Kristallnacht pogrom is just weeks away, and he can feel the noose tightening around every Jewish intellectual in the Reich. Loewe isn't just any physicist. He's a pioneer in radio wave technology, having spent the last decade researching electromagnetic propagation. His work on detecting aircraft through radio waves has caught the attention of the German military, but now that same military is controlled by men who want him dead, simply for being born Jewish. He makes a desperate decision, leaving behind everything except his research notes hidden in a hollowed-out book. Loewe boards a train to France. From there, he secures passage to Britain, arriving in Southampton with nothing but the clothes on his back and his precious notes. He's one of the lucky few. Behind him, the door to Germany slams shut as war clouds gather over Europe. In London, Loewe finds himself in a strange new world. His credentials mean little here. He's just another refugee, another mouth to feed in a nation preparing for war. He takes a small room in East London and tries to find work, any work, that will let him continue his research. But Britain is suspicious of German refugees, even Jewish ones. After all, what if they're spies? Then comes September 1939. Hitler invades Poland. Britain declares war. Everything changes overnight. Loewe sees his chance. He approaches the Air Ministry with a bold proposal based on his pre-war research. A radar system that can detect incoming aircraft much farther away than current technology allows. The British already have radar, developed by Robert Watson Watt, but it's crude, short-range, and often unreliable. Loewe's design promises something revolutionary. A way to integrate multiple radar stations into a network that can track aircraft across the entire southern coast of England. The British are skeptical. This German refugee wants access to military secrets, wants to work on their most sensitive defense technology. The interrogations are brutal. They suspect he's a Nazi plant. They question him for days, checking every detail of his story, contacting anyone who knew him before the war. Finally, one man believes him. Air Chief Marshal Hugh Dowding, the man responsible for defending Britain's skies. Dowding is desperate. He knows what's coming. The Luftwaffe is the most powerful air force in the world, and Britain's defenses are woefully inadequate. If this Jewish refugee can deliver even half of what he promises, it might make the difference between survival and destruction. In early 1940, Loewe is given a small team and a secret facility in the countryside. He has months, maybe weeks, before the German onslaught begins. The race against time has started, and the fate of Britain may rest on the shoulders of the very man the Nazis tried to destroy. September 7th, 1940. The date Britain would never forget. At 4:00 p.m., 348 German bombers, escorted by 617 fighters, darken the skies over London. It's the beginning of the Blitz, Hitler's attempt to bomb Britain into submission. The devastation is immediate and catastrophic. The London docks erupt in flames. Entire neighborhoods are reduced to rubble in minutes. The Thames itself seems to be on fire as oil tanks explode along the waterfront. By the time the all-clear sounds that night, 436 Londoners are dead, and 600 are seriously wounded, and it doesn't stop. The bombers return the next night, and the next, and the next. For 57 consecutive nights, the Luftwaffe pounds London without mercy. Other cities soon join the horror: Coventry, Birmingham, Liverpool, Manchester. The entire nation lives in fear of the sound of air raid sirens and the whistle of falling bombs. Britain's existing radar system, while groundbreaking, has critical limitations. The chain-home radar stations along the coast can detect incoming aircraft, but the information is often vague, delayed, and difficult to interpret. By the time the radar operators confirm a threat and alert the defense forces, the bombers are often already over their targets. Fighter pilots scramble in the dark with limited information. Anti-aircraft batteries fire blindly into the night sky. Civilians huddle in shelters, praying they won't be hit. The system is barely holding together, and everyone knows it. In his secret facility, Loewe works around the clock. He's developed something extraordinary: an integrated radar network with automated data processing. Unlike the existing system where human operators manually plot aircraft positions on maps, Loewe's device uses electronic circuits to automatically correlate data from multiple radar stations, calculate aircraft speed and trajectory, and predict their targets with remarkable accuracy. But there's a problem. The device is complex, requiring components that are in short supply. Vacuum tubes, specialized crystals, precision-machined parts, all are scarce in a nation under siege. Loewe improvises, cannibalizing parts from broken radios, begging for materials from other research facilities, sometimes building components by hand in the middle of the night. His team thinks he's driven mad by the pressure. He rarely sleeps. He barks orders in a mix of English and German when he's exhausted. He's haunted by nightmares of his family back in Germany, almost certainly dead by now in the camps. Every bomb that falls on London feels personal. He's not just building a radar system. He's fighting back against the regime that destroyed his life. By November 1940, Loewe has a working prototype. It's massive, filling an entire room with racks of equipment, humming and clicking as it processes radar signals. The first tests are promising but imperfect. The device can track multiple aircraft simultaneously and predict their flight paths, but it's temperamental and sometimes loses the signal entirely. Then comes the night of November 14th, 1940. Intelligence suggests the Luftwaffe is planning something big. The question is, where will they strike? Loewe's device is hooked into 3 coastal radar stations as a test. As dusk falls, the radar screens light up. A massive formation is crossing the channel, heading north. Using Loewe's calculations, the defense forces predict the target: Coventry. Fighters are scrambled. Anti-aircraft batteries are alerted. Firefighters are positioned in advance. When the bombers arrive, Britain is as ready as it can be. The attack is still devastating. Coventry's medieval cathedral is destroyed, and 568 people die, but it could have been far worse. The advanced warning allows thousands to reach shelters in time. The device works. Now Loewe just needs to convince the military to deploy it across the entire defense network. But military bureaucracy moves slowly, and the Blitz shows no signs of stopping. Despite the success at Coventry, Loewe faces an uphill battle. The British military establishment is notoriously conservative, resistant to change even in the face of catastrophe. Many officers view this German refugee with suspicion. Some still whisper that he might be a Nazi agent feeding false information to British defenses. Air Chief Marshal Dowding believes in Loewe, but Dowding himself is under fire. Critics blame him for the losses during the Battle of Britain and the ongoing Blitz. In November 1940, Dowding is removed from his command, replaced by officers less willing to take risks on unproven technology. Loewe is devastated. He's lost his most powerful advocate. Without Dowding's protection, the program might be canceled entirely. The bureaucrats are already sharpening their knives, questioning the costs, demanding more tests, suggesting that resources would be better spent on conventional defenses. But Loewe refuses to give up. He goes over heads, writes directly to Winston Churchill's scientific advisor, Frederick Lindemann. In a passionate letter, he argues that his system could cut civilian casualties by 30% or more. In a war of attrition, those numbers mean tens of thousands of lives saved. Lindemann is intrigued. He's a physicist himself, a German-born scientist who, like Loewe, fled the Nazis. He understands the technology and recognizes its potential. He arranges a demonstration for Churchill himself, January 1941. Churchill visits Loewe's facility, accompanied by military brass and scientific advisors. The Prime Minister is in a foul mood. The Blitz is grinding Britain down. Civilian morale is cracking. He needs good news, something to show the British people that their sacrifice isn't in vain. Loewe is terrified. Everything depends on this moment. If the demonstration fails, if the equipment malfunctions or the predictions are wrong, the program is finished. He'll be sent back to refugee status. His chance to fight back against Hitler lost forever. The demonstration begins. Radar signals pour in from the coast. Loewe's device springs to life, tracking multiple aircraft formations simultaneously. On a large plotting board, the system displays predicted flight paths, updated in real time as new data arrives. It's like watching the future unfold. Churchill watches in silence, smoking his cigar, his expression unreadable. The military officers whisper among themselves, some impressed, others skeptical. Then Loewe makes a bold prediction. Based on current trajectories, a formation will strike Portsmouth in exactly 23 minutes. The room falls silent. Everyone's eyes are on the clock. If Loewe is wrong, he's finished. If he's right, everything changes. 23 minutes later, the air raid sirens wail in Portsmouth. The bombers arrive almost to the second. Churchill turns to Loewe, a slight smile on his face. How soon can you deploy this across the entire network? The answer is complicated. Manufacturing the devices will take months. Training operators will take weeks. Integrating the system with existing radar stations requires coordination across multiple military branches, and Britain is fighting for its survival on multiple fronts. Resources are stretched impossibly thin. But Churchill makes the decision. The program is approved. Loewe is given priority access to materials and manufacturing facilities. The first production units will be ready by spring 1941. For Loewe, it's a moment of vindication. The refugee the Nazis tried to destroy is now an essential part of Britain's defense. But there's no time to celebrate. The Blitz continues. Every night more people die. He needs to get his devices into operation before the next major offensive. He pushes his team harder than ever. They work through bombing raids, sometimes hearing explosions nearby, while they solder circuits and calibrate equipment. Several team members are killed when a bomb hits a nearby building. Loewe himself is injured by flying glass during one raid, but refuses to take time off. By March 1941, the first 5 production units are installed at key locations around London and the industrial Midlands. They're networked together, creating an integrated defense system that can track aircraft across hundreds of miles. The system isn't perfect. It still has blind spots and occasional glitches, but it's revolutionary. The real test is coming. Intelligence suggests the Luftwaffe is preparing for a massive new offensive in the spring. This will be Loewe's system's trial by fire, April 1941. The Luftwaffe launches its spring offensive with renewed fury. After months of continuous bombing, Hitler wants to break British morale once and for all. The targets are Britain's industrial heartland and port cities, the economic lifelines keeping the nation in the war. On the night of April 16th, Loewe's integrated radar network detects something massive. Over 450 bombers forming up over France, the largest single raid of the war so far. The system calculates their trajectory and predicts the target with unprecedented accuracy: London's docks and the East End. The alert goes out almost 40 minutes before the bombers reach the coast. It's enough time to make a difference. Fighter squadrons are scrambled and positioned exactly where the bombers will cross the coastline. Anti-aircraft batteries are pre-targeted along the predicted flight path. Most importantly, air raid wardens have enough time to evacuate civilians from the target areas, getting thousands of people into shelters before the first bombs fall. The battle that night is fierce. RAF night fighters, guided by Loewe's system, intercept the bomber stream earlier and more effectively than ever before. 19 German bombers are shot down before they reach London, a casualty rate that shocks the Luftwaffe command. The anti-aircraft fire is more accurate, forcing the bombers to fly higher and scatter their formations. The bombing is still terrible. Hundreds of buildings are destroyed. Fires rage through the East End. But the casualties are significantly lower than previous raids of similar size. The early warning saved an estimated 2,000 lives that single night. Word spreads quickly through the RAF and civil defense organizations. The new system works. Suddenly, everyone wants it. City officials from Birmingham, Liverpool, and Manchester demand installations. Coastal commanders want coverage for their sectors. Even the Royal Navy expresses interest in adapting the technology for ship defense. But Loewe faces a new problem. He can't produce the units fast enough. Each device requires hundreds of specialized components and skilled technicians to assemble and calibrate. Britain's manufacturing capacity is already stretched to the breaking point, producing aircraft, tanks, ships, and ammunition. Finding resources for radar systems is a constant battle. He makes a difficult decision. Rather than trying to cover everywhere, he prioritizes the most critical targets: London, the industrial Midlands, and the major ports. Other areas will have to rely on the older, less effective systems. It's a choice that haunts him, knowing that people will die in unprotected areas because he can't manufacture devices fast enough. May 10, 1941. The Luftwaffe launches what will be its last major raid on London. Over 500 bombers attack in a final, desperate attempt to break British morale. Loewe's system tracks them from the moment they take off from French airfields. The defense is the most coordinated of the entire Blitz. RAF fighters are positioned in layers, intercepting the bombers in waves. Anti-aircraft fire is concentrated along predicted routes. Decoy fires are lit in unpopulated areas to draw bombs away from real targets. The famous starfish sites, Dummy cities built to confuse German navigation are activated based on the system's predictions of where bombers will be looking for landmarks. The raid is still devastating. The Houses of Parliament are hit. The British Museum suffers damage. Nearly 1,500 Londoners are killed. But the Luftwaffe pays an unprecedented price. 33 bombers are shot down, and dozens more are so badly damaged they crash on the return flight to France. Unknown to anyone in Britain, this raid marks a turning point. Hitler is about to make the biggest strategic mistake of the war. He's preparing to invade the Soviet Union. The Luftwaffe is needed in the east. The Blitz is effectively over. For Britain, it feels like survival. For Loewe, it's bittersweet. His system helped save thousands of lives, but thousands more still died. Every casualty report feels like a personal failure, a reminder that his devices aren't everywhere they're needed. But there's no time for reflection. The war is far from over, and Loewe's technology is about to be applied in new and unexpected ways. The RAF is planning a strategic bombing campaign against Germany, and they want Loewe's integrated tracking system adapted for offensive operations, helping bombers navigate to their targets and avoid German defenses. Loewe faces a moral dilemma. His system was designed to save British lives from German bombs. Now it will be used to rain destruction on German cities, cities where his family may have lived, where innocent civilians will die just as they died in London. He struggles with the decision for days, barely sleeping, barely eating. Finally, he reaches a conclusion. The Nazis started this war. They chose to bomb civilians. They're the ones who turned cities into battlefields. If his technology can help end the war faster, it might actually save lives in the long run, both British and German. He agrees to adapt the system for Bomber Command. But privately, he promises himself that after the war, if he survives, he'll dedicate his life to peaceful applications of radar technology. Never again will his inventions be used to hurt people. By late 1941, Britain is no longer fighting alone. The Soviet Union has been invaded and is desperately battling the Wehrmacht. Japan's attack on Pearl Harbor brings America into the war. The tide is beginning to turn, but victory is still far from certain. Loewe's integrated radar system has become an essential part of Britain's defenses, so essential that the British go to extraordinary lengths to protect its secrets. The system is given the code name Shadow and classified at the highest level. Only a handful of people know exactly how it works. The Germans know something has changed. Their bomber losses over Britain have increased dramatically. Their raids are being intercepted with uncanny accuracy. Intelligence reports speak of a new British radar system, but they don't understand how advanced it is. German scientists assume the British have simply built more radar stations, not that they've created an integrated network that can predict aircraft movements. This misunderstanding is carefully cultivated. British intelligence runs elaborate deception operations, leaking false information about new radar stations and advanced fighter aircraft. They want the Germans to think the increased defenses are due to greater numbers, not superior technology. The truth about Shadow remains hidden. Meanwhile, Loewe is working on improvements. The original system, revolutionary as it was, had limitations. It struggled to track aircraft flying at very low altitudes. It sometimes lost signals during bad weather, and it required constant maintenance by skilled technicians. By 1942, Loewe has developed Shadow Mark II, a more reliable and accurate version using improved electronics and better data processing algorithms. This version can track low-flying aircraft, making it effective against the Luftwaffe's new tactic of coming in under radar coverage. It can also distinguish between different types of aircraft, helping operators identify whether incoming planes are bombers, fighters, or even friendly aircraft returning from missions. The Mark II system is deployed just as the RAF begins its strategic bombing campaign against Germany. Now the technology is used in reverse, helping British bombers navigate through German defenses. The system calculates optimal routes, identifies gaps in German radar coverage, and helps bombers avoid the heaviest concentrations of anti-aircraft fire. The results are striking. British bomber losses decrease by nearly 20% after Shadow Mark II is fully implemented. More bombers reach their targets. Navigation is more accurate. The campaign against German industry becomes more effective. But Loewe takes no satisfaction in this success. Reports from the bombing raids describe cities in flames, civilians killed in their thousands. It's London and Coventry all over again, but now with British bombs falling on German heads. He's haunted by the thought that his family, if they're still alive, might be killed by technology he created. In the summer of 1943, Loewe receives devastating news through the Red Cross. His parents, who remained in Berlin, were deported to Auschwitz in 1942. They're almost certainly dead. The grief nearly breaks him. He stops going to the laboratory, locks himself in his room, doesn't eat for days. His team is worried. The man who drove them relentlessly, who seemed to have unlimited reserves of determination, has simply given up. The war continues, but Loewe has stopped fighting. It's Friedrich Lindemann, Churchill's scientific advisor, who pulls him back. Lindemann visits Loewe personally, sits with him in his dark room, and speaks to him not as a superior officer, but as a fellow refugee, a fellow scientist, a fellow Jew. "They wanted to destroy us," Lindemann says quietly. "They wanted to erase us from history. Every day you work, every life your invention saves is a victory against them. Your parents would want you to continue. They'd want you to survive, to build, to create. That's the ultimate revenge against Hitler. To live, to contribute, to matter." Slowly, painfully, Loewe returns to work. But he's changed. The driven scientist is now driven by something deeper than patriotism or revenge. He's driven by the need to make his survival mean something, to justify being alive when so many died. By 1944, as the Allies prepare for D-Day, Shadow has evolved into an entire family of integrated defense systems. It coordinates not just radar stations, but also fighter aircraft, anti-aircraft batteries, and even searchlights into a seamless defensive network. The system that started as one refugee's desperate attempt to fight back has become a cornerstone of Allied air defense. And Loewe is finally receiving recognition. He's awarded British citizenship in a special ceremony. The Royal Society elects him as a fellow for his contributions to radar technology. He's invited to meetings with high-ranking military officials, treated as an expert, not a refugee. But the greatest honor, and the one that means the most to him, comes from an unexpected source. Jewish refugees working in Britain's defense industries take up a collection and present him with a silver medal engraved with a Hebrew inscription. "Whoever saves one life saves the world entire." For the first time since learning of his parents' fate, Loewe cries. But these are different tears. These are tears of purpose, of meaning, of hope that perhaps something good can come from all this suffering. May 8, 1945, Victory in Europe Day. After 6 years of war, Nazi Germany has surrendered. The nightmare is over. Across Britain, people pour into the streets, dancing, crying, celebrating. Church bells ring for the first time since 1939. Churchill addresses the nation. "We may allow ourselves a brief period of rejoicing." In his laboratory, surrounded by the humming equipment of Shadow, Loewe sits quietly. He doesn't join the celebrations. He's thinking of his parents, of the millions who didn't survive to see this day. Victory feels hollow when you've lost everything. But as the revelations of the Holocaust emerge in the following months, as the full horror of the concentration camps is documented, Loewe realizes something profound. His work mattered. Shadow didn't just save British civilians, it helped win the war faster. Every German bomber shot down, every raid disrupted, every factory destroyed brought the end of the Nazi regime closer, brought liberation to the camps closer. The numbers are staggering. Conservative estimates suggest Shadow saved between 20,000 and 30,000 British civilian lives during the Blitz and subsequent German air raids. The improved bomber navigation helped shorten the war in Europe by an estimated 4 to 6 months. If those estimates are correct, Loewe's invention may have indirectly saved hundreds of thousands of lives, both Allied soldiers and concentration camp prisoners who were liberated sooner because of the earlier victory. But Shadow's story doesn't end with the war. As Britain begins to declassify wartime technology, the world discovers what Loewe created. His integrated radar network is recognized as a breakthrough in what will eventually be called systems engineering, the coordination of multiple complex systems to achieve a unified goal. American and Soviet scientists study Shadow's principles. The technology influences the development of early warning systems during the Cold War. The concept of networked data processing, central to Shadow, becomes a foundation for later developments in computing and information technology. Some historians argue that Loewe's work on automated data correlation and prediction was a crucial precursor to modern computer networks and even artificial intelligence. In 1947, Loewe is knighted by King George VI for his services to the nation, becoming Sir Heinrich Loewe. He's the first German Jewish refugee to receive such an honor. At the ceremony, Churchill himself is present, and he shakes Loewe's hand warmly. "You saved London," the former Prime Minister says simply. "Never forget that." But Loewe struggles with peacetime. The driven purpose that kept him going during the war is gone. He tries to return to pure scientific research but finds it unsatisfying. The urgency, the sense of fighting for survival, is missing. He's also haunted by nightmares, what we would now recognize as PTSD, reliving the bombings, the losses, the terrible choices he made. In 1950, he makes a decision that surprises everyone. He leaves Britain and moves to the newly established State of Israel. There, he helps build the young nation's defense systems, applying his radar expertise to protect the Jewish homeland. It's his way of honoring his parents' memory, of ensuring that Jews will never again be defenseless against those who wish them harm. He teaches at the Technion in Haifa, training a new generation of Israeli engineers. He consults on early warning systems for the Israeli Air Force, and slowly, surrounded by other survivors and refugees who rebuilt their lives, he begins to heal. Loewe lives to see his technology evolve far beyond what he imagined. In 1969, he watches on television as the Apollo 11 mission uses networked radar tracking systems, descendants of Shadow, to guide astronauts to the moon and back. He's 72 years old, and he cries again, thinking of his parents, wishing they could see what their son's work led to. Sir Heinrich Loewe dies in 1983 at the age of 86. His obituaries focus on his scientific achievements, his knighthood, his role in defending Britain. But few mention the full story of Shadow, much of which remained classified until the 1990s. Today, most people have never heard of Heinrich Loewe. There's no blockbuster movie about his life, no famous biography. His name doesn't appear in most history textbooks, but specialists know, radar engineers know, military historians know, and every person alive today whose grandparents survived the Blitz, who owes their very existence to someone who made it to a shelter because Shadow gave them a few extra minutes of warning, they owe a debt to a Jewish refugee who refused to let the Nazis win. In 2015, a small plaque was finally installed at the site of his wartime laboratory, now a technology park in the British countryside. It reads simply, "Here, Dr. Heinrich Loewe developed the integrated radar defense system that saved thousands of lives during the Second World War. A refugee became a hero. A victim became a defender. A survivor changed history." That's perhaps the greatest legacy of all, the reminder that refugees aren't burdens or threats. They're people with talents, knowledge, and determination. They're potential heroes waiting for a chance to contribute. Heinrich Loewe was given that chance, and he seized it with both hands, changing the course of the war and saving countless lives. The next time you use GPS navigation, connect to a wireless network, or benefit from any networked technology, remember the Jewish inventor who pioneered integrated systems while bombs fell around him, who turned his persecution into purpose, and who proved that one person's invention really can change the world.